asked a question last week about Siegfried and how he related to other heroes that we have read in other mythoi. And by the way, my computer, I'm going to be using this video for future generations, but I do want to, there are differences between this video and the ones that I've taken before, and that's because my computer crashed last week. And I bought a new video cam, and I'm still getting used to the sound because it's much better than the sound that was on my old computer. So sometimes if there's that distortion, I do apologize, but onward to Siegfried. I did do an assignment about Siegfried, and I did want to talk about Siegfried, and I decided to actually discuss him on a video rather than to do a written lecture. Now, as Barlin writes, and this is in Barlin's book, and the story of Siegfried begins on 180, but Barlin begins a little bit of a commentary about him on 179. This does have a lot of aspects of the heroic myths that we have read before. And so again, I'm just going to go straight through what Barlin presents here, which of course is a summary of the story, and discuss some of those aspects. And I think one of the things that is prominent about the Siegfried myth, legend, I'm not quite sure what we're going to call it, but we're going to, or which it is, but we're going to call it a myth. With the Siegfried myth is how Tolkien took aspects of this story and incorporated in The Lord of the Rings. And one of the first places we see this, and this is on page 180 in Barlin, where he writes, Alberich had a ring in his possession which gave its owner mastery of the world. And of course, if you are familiar at all with Tolkien's trilogy, you know that there was the one ring to govern all. There were other rings, but the master ring gave the owner ultimate mastery over the world, which is why Sauron wanted it back so dearly, and would go to any lengths to get it. And the ring is also important from the aspect of other cultures as well. I took a class in Anglo-Saxon literature at one time, and one of the things that we translated talked about the woodsman whose liege or his lord had given him a ring as a reward, and it was a sign of fealty and devotion to the lord or the liege. So a ring, you know, many people say that we wear wedding rings. Well, I don't wear a wedding ring, I'm not married. But why we wear wedding rings is because the circle is a symbol of eternity, and we do it to pledge ourselves. So even before the rings were exchanged in weddings, they were exchanged between friends and lords and their lessers for rewards in the sign of loyalty. But there are other aspects of Tolkien in this, and on page 181, it talks about Siegfried ordering men to reforge Nothung so that he, Siegfried, might fulfill his mission. And of course, this is a sword. And they took the shattered fragments of the sword and they rebuilt it. And of course, in the last book, The Return of the King, this is what the elves do with the sword for Aragorn. They take the shards, and the name of the sword escapes me right now, but they take the shards of that ancient sword that was shattered and they reforge it into a new sword. Tolkien didn't come up with that on his own. He knew about Siegfried. But beyond those classic applications and Tolkien's adaptation of this myth and many other myths, Tolkien also drew from many other myths. There's also other aspects from the heroic quest that began a long time ago. And one of those is the prophecy. And it is prophesied that a hero will come along and will, defeat Fafnir in the form of the dragon. Oh, and there's another thing linked with Tolkien from The Hobbit is the dragon guarding the treasure. And so there's this prophecy of, a hero coming along and getting rid of the bad guy. And of course, we have seen this in, the myth of Perseus, which we didn't read, but it certainly is there. We see this in almost the anti-hero, even though Oedipus was a hero, he's almost an anti-hero of, the prophecy that, he's going to marry his mother and kill his father. And so this special child, the child who is born who is going to accomplish great things, is certainly an archetype. Siegfried grows up without a father. He is raised by the dwarf Mim, and he doesn't know his father. Now he's not necessarily part deity as many of the other heroes that we have examined, but he does grow up away from his father and his mother as well, and doesn't know them. So again, this falls into the category of that heroic myth. And there is some talk about Odin, or Wotan as he is known in this, and that was more Teutonic than it was Norse, but nevertheless it is Odin that they are speaking of. Siegfried goes on a quest, and he has tasks that are set before him. And of course that first task was to slay Fafnir and reclaim the treasure, which he does do. Now when he kills Fafnir, it says that the blood dripped down the sword onto Siegfried's hand, and he touched his lips to the blood. This enabled Siegfried to understand the prophetic language of the birds. And this is symbolic, or I shouldn't say symbolic of, but related to a couple of other myths that I'm going to tell you about in the next video.